Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. At this time, I would like to remind council, municipal staff, and members of the public in attendance that this electronic public meeting is being live streamed to the public. A video recording of this meeting will be available to the public on the township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The public meeting to hear persons' comments in regards to a zoning bylaw amendment application made by the applicant, owners, applicants Craig Andrew Allen Kelly and Mary Jude Kelly, file number KEL-2021-03, held on April 20th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m., was recessed pending further information and a request for the County of Renfrew to draft a revised bylaw as agreed to by the applicants. The meeting recessed on April 20th, 2021 at agenda item number 9, questions discussion by council. The meeting is reconvened on May 4th, 2021 at 10 a.m., well actually at 10:10 a.m., where it recessed at agenda item number 9, questions discussion by council. An amended agenda has been provided to council that includes all correspondence on this file that was received between the April 20th recess and the April 30th, 2021. The email from Councillor Wilmer dated April 20th, 2021 that was read by Councillor Poplinski at the April 20th meeting will be included as addendum 6.15 to this agenda. An email from Pat Henstock dated April 20th, 2021, providing a link to Mr. David Henstock's video presentation on YouTube will be included as an additional addendum to his presentation in item 8.2. Now, I do need a motion to amend the agenda to include items 9.1 through 9.15 as provided on the amended agenda published on April 30th, 2021, and further to amend this agenda to include the following correspondence received to date. 9.16, email from David Henstock to Gwen Dombrowski and Silas Lorbetsky, dated May 1st, 2021. 9.17, email from Silas Lorbetsky to David Henstock et al., dated May 3rd, 2021. 9.18, email from Pat Henstock and David Henstock, final submission to the agenda with attachments to voice clips, Silas and County Planner, final Q&A, and site plan with museum system, dated May 3rd, 2021. 9.19, email response from Silas Lorbetsky to David Henstock et al., dated May 3rd, 2021. 9.20, email from David Henstock to Council with attachments, NOI designating bylaw and Ministry of Tourism and Culture standards and guidelines for conservation of provincial heritage properties, dated May 4th, 2021. 9.21, email from Craig Kelly to Sue Klatt, Paul Morrow, Lindsay Bennett, and Jude Kelly, dated May 4th, 2021. 10.2, pages 161 through 163 of the agenda, revised agenda. The revised draft bylaw with changes from April 20th, 2021, and 10.3, letter from the County of Renfrew, revision permitting only 2 single detached dwellings instead of 3, dated April 23rd, 2021. You've heard the motion, Council. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the motion? I will note to Council that any items you have not received or that you have just received today will be read out. Anything that was listed on the revised agenda, you have, and it is expected that you have read it. So with that, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. I will now turn it over to Mr. Lorbetsky to take us through items 9.1 through 9.21.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before I do that, I would like to introduce Paul Morrow, the CAO clerk from the County of Renfrew, who is sitting in the chair for Charles Cheeseman, who retired on April the 30th. And the bylaw amendment was done in conjunction. Charles Cheeseman prepared it with Lindsay Bennett and with Mr. Paul Morrow's, pardon me, approval, and that is the reason Mr. Morrow is sitting in, so he can speak to any of the amendments that were made to that bylaw. So with having said that, I will move on to item number 9.1. Silas Lerbetsky email, notice of continuation of meeting with attachments dated April the 23rd, 2021. And those attachments were correspondence and things that were received. So they are listed in that notice. Item 9.2, Councillor Bromwich email dated April the 23rd, 2021. Item 9.3, Craig Kelly email with amended site plan dated April 25th, 2021. Item 9.4, Councillor Schulist, email dated April 26th, 2021. Item 9.5, Silas Lerbetsky email revised site plan dated April 26th, 2021. Item 9.6, Silas Lerbetsky email to Paul Morrow dated April 27th, 2021. Item 9.7, Silas Lerbetsky email to Paul Morrow, amended site plan dated April 27th, 2021. Item 9.8, Hillary Kaczkowski, operations manager, email with site map indicating septic installations dated April the 28th, 2021. Item 9.9, Mayor Love, email dated April 27th, 2021. Item 9.10, email from David Henstock to Gwen Dombrowski, dated April the 29th, 2021. Item 9.11, email response from Mayor Love to David Henstock, dated April 29th, 2021. Item 9.12, email response from Silas Lerbetsky to Mad Valley Current, Danielle Paul, dated April 29th, 2021. Item 9.13, email response from Silas Lerbetsky to Councillor Ernie Poplinski, dated April 29th, 2021. Item 9.14, email response from Silas Lerbetsky to Mayor Love, including everyone else that was at the meeting, dated April 29th, 2021. Item 9.15, email response from Silas Lerbetsky to Craig and Jude Kelly, dated April the 30th, 2021. And those were the emails that were received at the time of publishing of the amended agenda. Thank you, Mayor Love.
All right, and if you could now take us through the emails that have been and the correspondence that has been received since the publishing of the amended agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will read all of them, and then each email can be addressed after the reading out of the items from 9.16 to 9.21. Is that the appropriate procedure for you?
If these were not part of the public agenda, so I would request that you introduce them, and I would request that the CAO please read them so that I am assured that all members of council are aware of the content of the emails.
So do I stop after each item or just read them all out and then the CAO will address each one individually after that?
I would suggest you stop after each item so we're aware of what it is she's reading. So if you would introduce it and she would read it, we'll start with 9.16.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 9.16, email from David Henstock to Gwen Dombrowski and Silas Lerbetsky, dated May the 1st, 2021. Thank you.
To read to the record, good morning, Gwen and Silas. I refer to the recording of the public meeting April 20th. Councillor Poplinski read out the email from Councillor Wilmer. Silas asked for a copy of Councillor Wilmer's email for the public record. Silas further stated that all documents received before and during the public meeting are included for the public record. There were 2 sound bites that were attached, one at 1:08:17, one at 1:17:30. The revised agenda does not include the copy of Councillor Wilmer's email as of 11:40 Saturday, May 1st. Above, I provide evidence of 2 emails sent to the staff mayor during the meeting. Under 8.2 of the revised agenda, I see 1 email from 12:32 appears left above, but missing the photo attached. The image on the right above refers to 2 emails sent 11:58 to Gwen Dombrowski and 11:59 to Kim and Sue. This was a shareable link as my attempt to show the presentation bombed due to bandwidth constraints. The link is here and should be included under 8.2 of the revised agenda, and it is the link to the YouTube. I do appreciate that you have both had a lot of submissions to deal with and would be grateful if you could attend to these submissions before the meeting Tuesday 4th at 10 a.m. Thank you for all that you do. Regards, David. That was 9.16.
Thank you. Item 9.17, email from Silas Lerbetsky to David Henstock and others dated May the 3rd, 2021. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Henstock. Thank you for your email. Gwen is away from the office and cannot update the agenda prior to the meeting. This and your email below is being circulated in advance of the meeting. Regards, Silas.
Thank you. Item 9.18, email from Pat Henstock, David Henstock, final submission to the agenda with attachments, 2 voice clips to Silas and to County Planner, final questions and answer, and site plan with museum system dated May 3rd, 2021. Thank you.
Hi, Silas. I acknowledge your earlier email and that the agenda cannot be amended today. Here's my final submission for your attention. It's interesting that the county planner's words have no traction with the county, don't you think? Please confirm safe receipt of this communication, David. Included the 2 video clips, one of Silas Lerbetsky, one of Charles Cheeseman, and the revised maps. There is a question and answer. Too much of the applicant's submission under the ZBA is still up in the air. The county planner spoke to the fact that good planning is there has to be transparency and public input while at the same time being timely on processing. And there are 13 questions. Access and parking in the ZBA, despite the applicant's viewpoint on this. Second question, is the planned operation seasonal or year-round? Third question, too many references to burning through money on this project. What did they expect to be spending? Number 4, buffering. We'll look at this in the future. When? Number 5, the well at the hall may have to provide a drilled well. The CF permit doesn't demand this, so why would it happen later? Drive point is just 14 feet deep, confirmed by the installer of same. 6th question, septic. Subject to the hydrog report linked to the H code. I'm okay with this, but don't support the linking of the converted church to the same system. Number 7, the buried cross issue, spoke to Glenn Guest, who was mentioned in the public meeting. Number 8, encroachments. Failure to remove those steps at the hall means we are cart before the horse. It solves the access issue. Why pass a bylaw to allow these to remain? Number 9, if sole driveway is aside the former rectory and it's a year-round operation, how will the driveway be cleared of snow? Can't go V-plowing in there. Number 10, construction of access driveways at the back to the other buildings should be detailed on the site plan so we know what is intended. This could adversely affect the folks using the converted hall as a deck, is evidently proposed for the back patio doors. Number 11, landscaping. Planned but no details, so we need to understand how the land will be managed as it's not a full-time residential home. When is this happening? Number 12, parking allocation as detailed. Near the northeast corner of hall, could be close to the former rectory weeping tile. Operations manager to investigate as stated by the mayor. Question 13, in the public session, I spoke to the fact that a residential reno permit does not control all aspects of the intended works. An engineering report should have been obtained prior to any permits due to the age of these properties, my opinion. If the contractor involved has limited experience, then nobody knows what will be encountered upon conversion. So the bottom line, the approval of the ZBA amended addresses the concern over the scale of development by limiting it to 2 buildings, the mayor's concern expressed. The future of the third building, the former rectory, is undefined, but will now require a second zoning application if the ownership does transfer. Too many of the listed points are unplanned and vague on their timeline detail. Plan must be part of the approval. Once the genie is out of the bottle, the control over events is lost. The residents deserve to understand the full implication under this planning application. The applicant has succeeded in starting the upgrade to the hall with the cooperation of the township. This means there has been no impediment and the timeline for the rest is not pressing. So what drives process is the timelines that the county planner spoke to. If the answers to council's questions are forthcoming and possible in the agreed short-term plan, then May 4th may be the date for passing the amended bylaw. The option remains for council to review the applicant's answers to consider the next steps, which could reasonably be to hold in abeyance further, not likely. This challenges the timelines, but the applicant may need more time to fully answer the questions posed in the interest of transparency for the process. So it's a tricky balancing act that Charles Cheeseman acknowledged in his address at the meeting. And attached was revised site plan that actually is detailed from the operation manager's revision. You're muted, Mayor.
Sorry, Sue, do you not have the next page? It was part of that attachment that you are reading. It starts with updated May 3rd. If you don't have it, I have it in front of me and I will read it if you would like. And now you're muted. Oh, the joys.
I do not have that one, Mayor. If you'd like to
Okay,
read that.
so it continues on the next page, updated May 3rd, acknowledging the efforts that the applicant and township have now gone to get the septic systems documented. I have no remaining concerns on this. The proximity of the 2 wells is not an issue. The county planner spoke to the fact that the site plan is registered on title, so the 2 need this to reflect what is planned. It doesn't seem to be a priority for this council. The county planner spoke to the fact that the access and parking is part of the ZBA process, but the applicant has reaffirmed no intention to address the second access if required. The advice of the county planner doesn't seem to be a priority for this council, submitted by David Henstock, May 3rd, 2021. Would you like now, Sue, to please just proceed to describe the other attachment to that document?
So the attachment that I have is the revised site plan, and it describes the new setbacks. And there is a copy of the original septic holding tank markers, and it appears to be a picture dated April 27th, 2021.
And this was submitted by Mr. Henstock with his positioning of where he believes the septic systems are on the property.
That's correct.
Okay. So it's pretty hard for us to read through that because it literally is, and I'm trying to show it, a drawing with some notes on the drawing and a picture. In the interest of transparency, I want to make sure all of these items are covered. All right, did that conclude all of the attachments in regards to that particular piece of correspondence?
Yes, it did. And I'd like to add as well that Councillor Poplinski has joined the meeting. He was having some issues with the link.
Okay, Councillor Poplinski, we are currently going through the additional correspondence that's been received since the amended agenda was published. Now we will proceed to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 9.19, email response from Silas Lebetsky to David Henstock and others dated May the 3rd, 2021.
Good morning, David, and all. Email hereby acknowledge regards, Silas.
Item 9.20, email from David Henstock to council with attachments dated May the 4th, 2021.
All, for democracy to be seen to work, the involvement of the public in local municipal affairs is recommended. Indeed, the role of any mayor is to actively encourage such participation. My opportunity to provide any further public input on the file KWL 2021-03 is not permitted following the adjournment of the public meeting April 20th. Since the meeting of April 20th, there has been new information received by me. I communicated with the mayor April 22nd, 8:53 a.m. and received a reply April 29th, 2:42, which reaffirmed. Council may have questions on your presentation. But the reply did not address whether new information would be heard at the resumption of the public meeting May 4th, 10 a.m. I am therefore left no option but to send the pertinent information for all council to be aware of. The link immediately following is from the Heritage Trust website. Please follow the link. The link immediately following is from the Ontario Ministry of Heritage, Sport and Culture Industries. Please follow the link. For anyone with bandwidth challenges and not able to follow the link, I have attached the downloaded details. Please see the attached PDFs. Finally, I submit a link for what I would have presented had I been allowed to contribute to the public meeting as requested in my email. Please follow this link, and it is a link to a YouTube. The information supplied requires no further comment from me. Regards, David. One of the links referenced is from the Notice of Intention to Designate in the matter of the Ontario Heritage Act 1974. It is a Notice of Intention to Designate dated, received June 30th, 1997. Take notice that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Radcliffe intends to designate the property, including lands and buildings at the following municipal address as property of architectural and historical value of interest under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act 1974, SO Chapter 122. The other attachment is December 10th. Yes?
Sue, there was more to that particular attachment.
Okay, you want me to read the whole? Okay, sure.
Yes, please.
Apologies. Section A.
Yes.
Apologies, Section A, Part Lot 6 and Part Lot 7. Concession 5, reasons for proposed designation, see attached. Notice of objection to the proposed designation, together with a statement of the reasons for the objection and all relevant facts, may be served on the clerk of the Township of Radcliffe before the 5th day of August 1997, and it was dated at the Township of Radcliffe the 24th day of June 1997. It was signed by the clerk treasurer at the time, Pat Pilgrim. Attached is a document, Ontario Heritage Trust. And this was a document retrieved from the Ontario Heritage Act Register, which is accessible through the website of the Ontario Heritage Trust at www.heritagetrust.on.ca. The next attachment is from the Township of Radcliffe. It was received December 10th, 1997. November 20th, it was written November 20th, 1997. To the Ontario Heritage Foundation. Dear Sir, enclosed, please find a copy of designating Bylaw 9721 as passed by the Township of Radcliffe at their regular council meeting on November 17, 1997, to designate St. Paul Anglican Rectory as a heritage building. The bylaw attached is Bylaw 9721, which is a bylaw to designate the property known municipally as Part Lot 6 and 7, Concession 5, Radcliffe Township. Do you want me to read the bylaw?
Please do. Because these items may not have been read by council because they came in at, I believe, just before 6 a.m. this morning.
Okay, through the chair. Whereas Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act 1974 authorizes the council of a municipality to enact bylaws to designate real property, including all buildings and structures thereon, to be of architectural and historical value or interest. And whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Radcliffe has caused to be served on the owners of the lands and premises known as Part Lot 6 and 7, Concession 5, Radcliffe Township, and upon the Ontario Heritage Foundation, notice of intention to so designate the aforesaid real property, and has caused such notice of intention to be published in the same newspaper, having general circulation in the municipality for one time only. And whereas no notice of objection to the proposed designation has been served on the clerk of the municipality, therefore the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Radcliffe enacts as follows. There is designated as being of architectural and or historical value or interest the real property known as St. Paul's Anglican Rectory at Part Lot 6 and 7, Concession 5, Radcliffe Township. 2, the municipal solicitor is hereby authorized to cause a copy of this bylaw to be registered against the property in the proper land registry office. 3, the clerk is hereby authorized to cause a copy of this bylaw to be served on the owner of the aforesaid property and on the Ontario Heritage Foundation, and to cause notice of the passing of this bylaw to be published in the same newspaper for one time only, having general circulation in the municipality. And it was read a first and second time, as well as a third and passed time on the 17th day of November 1997 by Reeve Bill Schwig and clerk at the time, Pat Pilgrim. Further attached to this document, to this email, is a document from the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, and it sets out the standards and guidelines, and it is dated April 28th, 2010.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Larbetsky, could you please continue to the last item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 9.21, email from Craig Kelly to Sue Klatt, Paul Morrow, Lindsay Bennett, and Jude Kelly, dated May the 4th, 2021. Thank you.
Email received at 6:35 a.m. forwarded to Paul Morrow, Lindsay Bennett, Jude Kelly, Craig Kelly. Response, Ms. Klatt, we are acutely aware of the heritage designation of the rectory currently owned by the municipality. The church nor the hall received the same designation. It is our understanding that the diocese at the time objected to the designation on those remaining 2 buildings. To our knowledge, there is no local heritage, local architectural conservation advisory committee at the moment. As we are not owners of the former rectory, now referred to as Mission House Museum and Gallery, no renovations or modifications are planned for that real property. In a planning context, this has no bearing on what's before you today for consideration, unless we're proven wrong otherwise. Craig and Jude Kelly.
Okay, thank you. That then completes the additional correspondence that has now been read out in the public meeting. For the sake of transparency, everything that was received has been read. And oh yes, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to add more a housekeeping item. It's not included as correspondence. I did forward last night just a clarification email to Mr. Henstock that I did go on the website to ensure that the addendum, which was Mr. Kelly's presentation, that the link was working, and it was added by the deputy clerk following the last revised agenda.
And it is part of this amended agenda before us today.
It is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is one further addition that council has not seen, which was 10.3. But when we get to the bylaw, we will read that addition for you. It is just the cover letter from the County of Renfrew on the revised bylaw. So with that, we are at questions discussion by council. I would note to council that in the correspondence we've received since the amended agenda was published, one item that is brought to our attention is the historical designation of the rectory building. The rectory building is municipal property. I'm really pleased to learn that it has this designation. It is something that council will have to consider in regards to our ownership of that building and any work that may need to be done to that building. I do suggest that this will require that we research and find out exactly why the building was designated and what components of the building were designated as heritage. Because in doing the research around whether or not there was a designation for the railway station in Barry's Bay, I learned that components of a building can be designated heritage, and you need to know what components those are. So that you ensure that that heritage is maintained in any work you do. But that is a matter for the municipality because that building is owned by the municipality. Now, in reference to that, I would like to refer to Ms. Bennett and ask that she would please speak to whether or not the designation of a building that is not owned by the property owner has any impact on this zoning bylaw amendment before us.
Thanks, Mayor Love. So it is our professional opinion that the heritage designation would apply to the rectory, which is the museum, and not to the lands, not to the buildings owned by the Kellys. The rectory, as we've said, it's owned by the township, and as such, if any modifications are required, then they would be subject to the Ontario Heritage Act, and they would be the responsibility of the current owner, which is the township.
And does that heritage designation have any impact on a zoning bylaw amendment? Is it any component of this amendment that should be considered?
No, not for this one, because the lands we're designating the rezoning the lands that are not subject to the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that point. Is there any questions from council? I'm going to sort of take a step across the two meetings and ask if council has any questions for Mr. Henstock on his presentation that he provided on April 20th, because I did not get a chance to do that and no questions were posed at that time. So does any member of council have a question for Mr. Henstock on his presentation that he did on April 20th? Sorry, I have to check. You're all in different places. Okay, I don't see any questions on that matter. Now, is there any questions from council on any of the new information we've received up to this point in time? Any questions or discussion? Councillor Poplinski. And you are muted, sir. I lost him.
How are we doing now?
Okay, you've turned off your video. Your audio is on, but your video has gone off. There we go.
We're back in business.
Yes.
Thanks, Mayor Love. My question actually is to Silas, and I'm just wondering, have we done everything possible to safeguard the status of the heritage building under bylaw 97-21? And if we proceed with this application, is there something that we should be doing at this point in order to safeguard the interests of the public here?
Thank you, Councillor Poplinski. As was stated by the Mayor and Lindsay Bennett, the heritage status does not come into effect with this zoning bylaw amendment. That heritage status applies to the building, which the municipality owns, and that, as Mayor Love stated, that will have to be researched, and that is what council will have to take into consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, further question. Are there any further implications, the fact that the building is owned by the township, but the ground underneath the building is owned by the new owner? Are there any implications because of that, dealing with the heritage under the Heritage Act?
I'm not a professional, but I would say no, because I am dealing with the planning aspect of it, and the Planning Act deals with the designation of the land, and any placement of buildings falls under the building code, and if there is a designation, has to be adhered to. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, I do believe council, as a responsible owner of this building, needs to ensure that the research is done to determine exactly why the building was designated and what components of the building were designated heritage, so that we can ensure that as we are maintaining our building, that we are upholding the heritage designation. But that is for council as the owner to do. Sue?
Yes, it had been confirmed that any such application at the time with respect to modifications to the structure would be subject to the Ontario Heritage Act adherence as well.
Okay. Does council have any other questions or any discussion on this application before us today with the revised bylaw as presented? Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I just more a comment than a question. I guess it's part question too, but to me, this zoning changing from community facility to residential makes total sense. It really, I think, is something that will help the area overall. But I guess when I look at it, and I apologize for missing the first meeting. I don't think I've missed a meeting before, but I did have medical appointments in Ottawa that day. So some of this I did watch it, but you miss things when you're watching it on video. I'm just wondering, as I said, I support this, but just maybe somebody could sort of explain where we go from here, because I think it's a good idea, but there seem to be many little issues that people are concerned about. And I'm wondering, once we, or if we approve the zoning change, which is all we're being asked to do, what is the process from there? Is there a site plan required, or what can happen at the building permit stage? Those sort of things, just to perhaps alleviate or help people understand, some of the difficulties and how they can be resolved as the process moves forward. I don't know that that makes sense. It did to me, but
No, Councillor Wilmer, that's fine. I think you have a question that might be in the back of some of our minds. Is a site plan required under what we have in front of us? Will it be required at some point going forward? Could anyone answer that for me? Because I think that a lot of us may share that a desire to know that. I don't know who could. Lindsay. Sorry, Miss Bennett.
Thanks, Mayor Love. So a site plan may be required. It is up to council to require it under Section 41 of the Planning Act. So if you feel a need for the site plan, then you can require it.
Okay. So that is an option for council to consider. We could ask that there be a site plan. Now, we have been provided with an updated sketch, and I know that the owners have done their best to identify where the septics are, which was, again, one of the things that was a subject of considerable discussion at the previous meeting. I think I would like to give the applicants, the property owners, an opportunity, if they would like to speak at this point, to the question of a site plan, and also if they'd like to speak to any of the correspondence that obviously came in since the amended agenda was published. Sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, but please, if you'd like to speak to any of this.
We're just trying to draw the straws here and see who's wants the short one. Thanks, Mayor, and through you to committee and council. No, I'll address the site plan. I just was looking in the background to see if we did receive, I think it was 9.8 from Hillary and or Mr. Henstock, who both taken liberties to measure out where things are on the property. So I just don't recall seeing that, but we have gone through some efforts, and I believe the township has, well, I don't believe, we know the township has as well, to identify where things are, which helps out. It is quite the large septic field that we have. It was built for good capacity, so we're working with our septic installer to determine the additional fixtures should we move forward, if what's able to be added to that. So we're working on that. We have, and there's several questions. We can address the one about potable water, I guess, or the wells. We have been in contact with a well driller, and who's very familiar with that whole segment of Radcliffe Township in Combermere. It's very sandy, of course, as many of you know. You live in Combermere, know the sand, and suggests to us that drilling a well is actually a mistake, to keep going with drive point, because for instance, there is a large business in the area in that same quadrant who has had several wells not work because of the sand. And then when they get down deep to bedrock, the high levels of iron in the water. So the well driller, in his opinion, keep going with the drive points and just ensure that the quantity is there, and that potability is either obtained through the drive point or through a UV filter. So he talked himself out of several thousands of dollars, but he provided that advice to us. So yeah, I think we're here more to answer questions. I think we provided in the last meeting a series of information. We have updated site plans, and I appreciate you taking the time to review those. We also appreciate the large number of documents that have come and gone between the applicant, ourselves, and some of our neighbors. It's unfortunate that it's like this, but we have made steps to upgrade the building and are trying to maintain the heritage features while not designated, are trying to look at finishes now on the outside of the building that's currently being renovated to move forward in an acceptable fashion to recognize what our neighbors have done, the neighboring church, at least anyways, in Mission House. Other than that, we are appreciative of the efforts for those to suggest where we should get entrances or otherwise on our property. We are not quite there to remove a ramp that's been there for years or do anything else at this point, but have otherwise identified on a site plan where access could happen to all those buildings. So I guess long and short, when and if we decide to convert the church building into a residential building, we will, through the building process, identify that on the site plan, which we have done with Mr. Dombrowski over the course of the last renovations, have submitted site plans appropriate to the building permit, which we understand happens with every building permit, that a site plan is part of the building permit process. They are not registered on title like a site plan with a commercial building is, but they are part of the building permit process. So I think with that, we're here to answer questions, but unless you have any other questions, we're here to answer questions that should you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I appreciate your input. Sue.
I just want to clarify, just to your point, Mr. Kelly, I think page 137 is probably the diagram and the dimensions that Mr. Henstock used on his revised site. Because when I look at the notes, because he references the operation manager's dimensions. So I think on that sketch in the agenda, which was page 137, that's possibly the dimensions that he used. I may be wrong, but that's my assumption.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a look again. The enormity of the file is getting even big for our knowledge, and we're there in the evening. But we'll take a look and I guess verify ourselves. But we're confident that it's in roughly the same location as we've all identified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you did provide us with a sketch, including showing on the sketch where there are many possible opportunities to extend the driveway and provide parking. So you've certainly more than addressed any issues of there only being one driveway, and with that there would be access to parking for all three buildings when those buildings have a residential based use. Again, the church is not a church, so it does not require assembly hall type parking facilities. Are there any further questions from council on this file? Councillor Wilmer.
Just on the actual bylaw itself, and just a question for my information. We have a holding on it, or an H at the end, the R1E71H. When does the H typically, or the holding typically, get removed? And I know it says it requires a bylaw for that, but what really is the intent, and how long does that process take?
Okay, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Wilmer. There is a process. It's actually Section 36, I believe, of the Planning Act outlines the process for the removal of the holding zone. He is absolutely correct in what he says. There is a bylaw that required public notification for that particular bylaw and that meeting of council to occur. Council can specify conditions as per that provision. I do not believe there is a timeline, though, on on removing of the holding zone. However, though, as per the zoning bylaw that is before you today, should the applicants wish to remove the holding zone, they must make that application to council. And then once that is done, the process would ensue, and there would be an opportunity for further public comment. In fact, there would be an opportunity again with the 90-day appeal period once council makes that decision to go before the LPAT, the local planning tribunal board as well. So similar provisions would apply to the rezoning. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Morrow. Does that answer your question, Councillor Wilmer? Sorry.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess just in terms of the only issue that we still haven't come to any decision about is whether or not a site plan would be required. And as Mr. Kelly mentioned, if it was a requirement similar to how it is done for a commercial business, it would be registered on title. Is council comfortable with having a site plan provided at the building permit stage as it usually is done in residential, any sort of residential development? Does anyone have any concerns with that? Mr. Morrow, please.
Sorry, Your Worship. I just want to make sure, clarify for the record, the appeal period is now for the holding zone and putting it on place. So Section 4 of the Planning Act is a little bit different in that particular case. There is an appeal period, but it is now on the holding zone implementation. Thank you.
Okay, so any appeals to this particular file are for the entire file at this point in time. Once this meeting is completed, should the bylaw be approved by council in our subsequent meeting, the appeal period will start.
That's correct, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be very clear on that. So does council have any concerns with the site plan being a component of the building permit process going forward? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Any further questions or discussion from council on this file? Councillor Poplinski. Sorry, sir, you're muted.
Good.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry, we can't hear you yet. You need to, there, oh,
We're good.
there we go.
We're good.
Okay.
We're good. Okay.
Yeah, just thank you. What I was saying was that this is a very complex file. And I think most of everyone here will agree with that. And I think that there's been considerable effort to answer questions related to some of the questions regarding driveways, septic systems and parking and so on. And I think all those questions have been answered adequately. The one area that of concern that I have is that there were several letters written by the adjoining landowners, of course, objecting to this particular application, and they cite many things about that have been mentioned under the Planning Act. And I'm sure we want to take the advice of the people in the planning department when they talk about approving something that's conducive and suitable for the community. And I'm just many of those concerns. I think we all have access to the letters that were submitted, and I would like to hear some comments from the councillors, how they wish to deal with some of those concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Poplinski, you're going to have to identify the specific concerns you're speaking about, because to my knowledge, we've addressed any of the planning concerns for this file.
Just bear with me. You know, I can refer to several of the letters, but I think of one that was submitted by Jack and Shirley Rady, and just bear with me here.
That one is at page 65.
And they talk about the noise. They talk about the proximity to the small beach area. And of course, this particular family live directly across from the property. And they also feel that it would have negative impact on the resale value of their home. They talk about the traffic, boats and trailers and many other things, but I think that there's some real concerns, and that it's echoed in the one that was submitted by Eddie Francis. He brings up some very good issues, and I would just like to, like I said, I think we've handled many of the other complexities, but I think these are areas that we need to give some assurances to the people that, you know, I'm sure they're going through a lot of anxiety right now trying to deal with this, and that we are aware of some of those issues and how we're going to proceed with it. So I would love to hear some comments from the other councillors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I can't make people comment on something, but I will tackle that one myself. I would note that this is being rezoned to a residential zone, which does conform with the neighborhood. Again, the Kellys have indicated they are looking to do rental. They have also indicated at some future point they may do short-term rental accommodations. Now, we in Madawaska Valley do not have any bylaws, restrictions, or licensing of short-term rental accommodations. So anyone can use their home or their cottage for short-term rental accommodations. I myself live across the street from a cottage that's being renovated for short-term rental accommodations. It is a residential property. So since there is nothing within our particular licensing regulations, our comprehensive zoning bylaw that addresses short-term rental accommodations, that's not a factor on the table for this particular file. Should council wish to pursue that in the future, then we will have to do the research to be able to learn the steps involved in regulating and licensing short-term rental accommodations. I would certainly refer you to Prince Edward County, who have, as a county, done that because they have significant levels of short-term rental accommodation. But I would recognize to council that there are many properties across Madawaska Valley that are used for short-term rentals. Many people rent their cottages. As I state, the cottage across the road from me is regularly rented in the summer. This is something that is allowed and that is done. They are residential properties and it can happen. There is nothing to prevent that. A lot of the issues the neighbors have raised would potentially be issues that would be addressed through regulation and licensing of short-term rental accommodations. But we have at this point on the table nothing before us that says that these are definitely going to be issues in this neighborhood, any more than they could be issues from any one of these neighbors who decided to use their property in that manner. So we have to look at the planning issue before us and the fact that this is being rezoned to residential. I think the Kellys have been very open in including the possibility that this could become a short-term rental, but council doesn't regulate that. So though anything that may arise from that type of use cannot be dealt with at this point in time because we don't regulate it. Again, they've provided a sketch that indicates where the driveway will be, that there will be parking off-road. The intent that they have presented us with is to begin this as a rental and as not as short-term rental, but rather as a rental accommodation. And the zoning is residential, which conforms with what they have put forward to us today. So I'm not sure how we can address these concerns. The neighbors do need to recognize that any neighbor who does find themselves next to a short-term rental accommodation may have similar concerns. But that's allowed in Madawaska Valley. Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Yeah, it's funny, I was going to talk on that too. I really feel that is not the planning issue we're dealing with today, is the short-term rentals, which seems to be one of the bigger concerns. And that is something that, and you know, quite a few municipalities are developing their own policies or bylaws on short-term rentals. The Prince Edward County one, I also know the City of Ottawa recently did. do something there. And I think that is something we deal with if it's required, if or when it's required. I don't believe in creating bylaws when we don't have a problem. And at this point, I'm not hearing people say there is a problem. If I can see potentially that might be down the road because things are changing the way people do short-term rentals. And at that time, I'm prepared to look at it through a separate bylaw, but it's not part of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmer. Any further comments from council on basically the issues that have been raised by the neighbors that basically would relate to the use of the property as short-term rental accommodations? Okay. So if we look at the property as a residential property, I would note that any issues that have been raised in terms of it being a residential property have been addressed, and it conforms to what any other residential property would need to conform to in the township of Madawaska Valley. Is there any further questions or discussion by council on this file? Okay, I see none. I'm not seeing any hands up. So with that, Mayor has lost her agenda in all the papers. I believe Mr. Lerbetsky, if you could take us, then we've concluded any discussion and questions by council, thoroughly discussed, presented all correspondence. If you could please take us through the items in number 10, and I will ask that 10.3 be read by Ms. Klatt.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Item number 10.1, for clarity, to bylaw amendments letter from the County of Renfrew, refer to pages 119 email dated include attachments. So that's just to clarify. And item 10.2, pages 161 to 163 are the revised draft bylaw with the changes that were made, and it's dated April the 20th, it should say 2021. And at that point, the bylaw was amended going back to the April 20th meeting where Mr. and Mrs. Kelly said that they would not be requesting the 3 dwelling units on the property, and that it was to, they were satisfied with it just being 2 residential units. And as I stated in that meeting, that there is provincial policy that allows 2 dwelling units on a property, and that if the county official plan was in place, the municipal zoning bylaw, the comprehensive zoning bylaw, will be amended accordingly when that happens, and it will allow 2 residential dwelling units on all properties if they conform to the requirements in size. So I think that it's what happened, and the bylaw was redrafted by Ms. Bennett and Mr. Cheeseman in conjunction with Mr. Morrow to reflect that it is now only 2 residential units, and that speaks to item number 10.2. And then item 10.3 is the letter from the County of Renfrew revisions permitting only 2 single detached dwellings instead of 3, and that's dated April the 23rd, 2021. Thank you, Mayor Love.
Okay, thank you. And I'll have Sue read that letter, please, because I do not believe it was attached to the amended agenda.
A letter dated April 23rd from the County of Renfrew, signed by Paul Moreau, Chief Administrative Officer, as well as Charles Cheeseman, Manager of Planning Services, addressed to Mr. Lerbetsky, zoning bylaw amendment revised. Owners Craig and Mary Jude Kelly, part of lots 6 and 7, concession 5, 1048 A, B, and 1050 Mill Street, geographic township of Radcliffe, township of Madawaska Valley. Our file number is ZB2126.3. Further to the public meeting of April 20th, 2021. We are enclosing a revised zoning bylaw amendment, both a track changes version to show the changes and a final consolidated version incorporating the changes, as directed for council. Revised versions of the notice of passing or refusal are also included to reflect the changes to the bylaw. The changes in the revised bylaw and notices permit only 2 single detached dwellings instead of 3, being the conversion of the assembly hall and only one of the other 2 buildings, church or museum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have now read anything that was not part of the amended agenda. It has been read publicly for council and for members of the public in attendance. With that, we will move to number 11, and I'll ask Sue to read the notification at the public meeting.
Through the chair, council is also required by section 34:14.5 to inform the public at the public meeting of who is entitled to appeal to the local appeal tribunal under sections 34:11 and 19 as follows. Section 34:11, if council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 120 days of the municipal clerk receiving the application, the applicant or the Minister of Municipal Affairs may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Under section 34:19, not later than 20 days after the giving of notice of passing of the bylaw, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submissions at the public meeting or made a written submission to council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality.
Okay, thank you, Sue. This bylaw will be before council at our council and committee meeting this afternoon in the regular council portion of the meeting.